Good afternoon, everyone. Let me welcome you to the Burke County Board of Commissioners pre-agenda meeting for Tuesday, March the 5th, 2019. Madam Clerk, all the commissioners are present along with the Deputy County Manager and the County Attorney. If you would this time, check all your mobile devices or electronic devices. Make sure we have those on silent. We would appreciate that. And if you are a presenter, please come up and mash the button to the right that turns on the little red light so that Kay can get you recorded. Moving on to approval of the agenda, gentlemen, consent item number 3, which was a school change order. Burke County Public Schools has asked for that to be removed. Otherwise, the agenda will remain the same, and we can accept a motion as amended.
So moved.
Thank you, Chairman. Oh, Chairman, that's good. Chairman Bretton, it's all right. All right, you've heard Jeff's motion. All in favor signify by raising the right hand. That's 5-0, Madam Clerk. Moving on to our presentations, our first one will be from the Register of Deeds. Presentation of the electronic tax portal presented by Stephanie Norman, our Register of Deeds. Stephanie.
Good afternoon.
All right. Yes. So good afternoon. So I'm going to try and multitask and talk and keep up with this at the same time. But on March 18, 2014, the Burke County Commissioners passed a resolution that prohibits the Register of Deeds Office from recording a deed if there's delinquent taxes owed on the property. This authority is provided to North Carolina counties under North Carolina General Statute 105-303A2 and 161-31. So the issues that we were having were that deeds were coming into the office without a tax stamp on them. And so we were having to send customers out of our office over to the tax office, and then once they received a tax certification stamp, they were coming back to our office to have the document recorded. And if deeds came in through the mail, we were having to send the documents back to the submitter instead of sending them over to the tax office to get the tax certification stamp. And that doesn't sound like a big issue, but for a lot of individuals, they have trouble getting in and out of our office, either through the steps at the front or the steps in the back, or having to come across the courtyard. Plus, if court's in session, parking is hard to find. We wanted to take a look at what we could do to help improve that. And so we met with our software vendor, and we came up with the idea of being able to send the documents over to the tax office electronically. And so we met with the tax office and said, you know, would you be willing to partner with us on this project along with our software vendor? And they graciously agreed that they would partner with us. So there were two main objectives that we wanted to meet with the electronic taxation portal, and one was to improve customer service and convenience, and because the electronic portal would eliminate the need for customers to leave our office and have to go to the tax office. And if they owed any delinquent taxes, we do have public computers in our office to where they could log on to the tax office website and pay their delinquent taxes, and then we could send it over to the tax office all without them having to leave. If deeds came in the mail, that we could send them on over to the tax office without having to reject them, if you will, and send them back, which holds up the recording process and real estate closings. And then often the local tax attorneys get the tax form filled out, but sometimes they come into our office and they've forgotten to actually come over and get the tax stamp. So this would allow us to send it over to the tax office to get the tax stamp without them having to leave. And non-local attorneys often don't realize what our local resolutions are, so it helps them as well. And then the second objective of the electronic portal was to create one entry way or portal for the tax office for e-recording. So right now we have 2 e-recording vendors, and one's not set up, but if they were set up, the tax office would have to navigate between online systems to process those requests. And with this electronic portal, it would be one way into the tax office for e-recordings as well as these, and they wouldn't have to navigate between multiple systems. They would just have one system. So we wanted to show you how easy this tax portal works. And so this is our system at the Register of Deeds office, and we would just log in, and then we would scan the deed in. Maybe. There it goes. The tax form is also attached to the deed, so that information comes to the tax office as well, and you can see that on the second page. And then we just click a little button. I don't know if you can see it, but it says tax office. And when she hits that, it sends it over to the tax office. And then it actually pops up in our e-recording queue so that we can see it. Our office and the tax office gets an email notification that a document's ready to be reviewed. And it takes it just a few seconds, but so if she'll log on over to the tax office side, this is where it pops up in their queue. Of course, we've done this 100 times, and today it's not going to come through. Tyra, see if it's come up in our queue on our side. Okay, so it does, and we even practiced it this morning over here, and it went through. But so there it is. Yep. That's the PowerPoint. If you
yeah, I just did pop up on
the PowerPoint's up, but
yeah.
okay, so. There you go. So this is the tax office queue, and they just click on the review button and it opens the document for them. And they can research the PIN numbers and see if there's taxes owed, delinquent taxes owed. And for this purpose, we're going to just start, we would click action, and if there were delinquent taxes owed, we would just click reject document, and it gives us the tax office an opportunity to say why it's being rejected and what taxes are owed. For this purpose, we're going to just stamp the document. And the electronic stamp comes up. We put the PIN number in, or the tax office staff put the PIN number in, and click the check. So then they can come over, and the PIN number has been inserted into the electronic stamp. They check it to make sure the PIN number is correct. If it's not correct, they can click redo and re-enter the PIN number. If it's correct, they hit done. And that sends it back to us. And then we tender it. It comes back to us, and we enter the information in, and it's recorded at that point in time. So we implemented this in 2 phases, and to ensure a successful transition and implementation, not only for our office and our customers, but for the tax office. For in-person or counter individuals and mailed-in documents, we started initial development in September of 2018. We met with the tax office to develop the workflow between the 2 offices and to provide feedback to our vendor for the development of the portal. And then a test environment was created mid-October of 2018, and we actually went live with this November 1st of 2018. The second part's for the e-recording, and again, initial discussions started with our e-recording vendors in October. They've had to submit work orders for their system to be updated so that the documents can be rerouted. That started in mid-November. Test environments have been created and are available for testing. We're in February, and we're actually hoping to train and go live with this in the next few weeks. And we've had successful results. We've submitted 58 deeds through the electronic tax portal to the tax office from walk-in customers between November 1st and February 27th. So on average, that is, we've eliminated the need for 15 people that walk into our office to have to leave and come over to the tax office in this short period of time, and I think that's successful. And then, again, we're hoping to go live with this next phase within the next few weeks. And then our software vendor, Courthouse Computer Systems, actually nominated us for the National Association of Counties 2019 Achievement Award for this, and we hope that we'll hear and hopefully we'll get selected for that in April. But we're real proud of that. And the last thing that we wanted to say, because we know somebody's going to ask, well, how much did this cost? And it did not cost us a thing. It does not cost our office or the tax office or the county anything. Our vendor saw our vision with this, felt that it was a need, and developed this portal at no cost to either office or the county. And this system will be used as a model for other counties that have implemented this resolution in their county, but also have a register of deeds office and tax office in different locations. And that's all.
All right, great presentation, Stephanie. Any questions or comments to Steph?
Mr. Chairman, congratulations on your award. I did have one. Stephanie, is there any cost, and to which fund will it be charged?
And there's no cost at all.
No cost.
Yep.
It's just a benefit from the people you do your internet and your computers stuff through.
Yes.
That's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
All right, any other questions or comments for Stephanie? Hearing none, without objection, this will remain on our agenda. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Moving on to our next item is our scheduled public hearings. The first one is Community Development Zoning Map Amendment ZMA 2019-01 in the public hearing, presented by Scott Carpenter, Deputy County Manager and Planning Director. Scott?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies, gentlemen, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So I have just one item for a public hearing today, and this is a zoning map amendment. So staff has received a rezoning application from Michael. I believe his pronunciation on this name is Ciofeletti, to rezone one parcel of land, which is about 1/2 acre in size. The request is to rezone the property from its current zoning of R3 residential to general business district. The 911 address of the parcel is 2971 North Carolina 181 Morganton. The parcel has approximately 200 feet of road frontage on North Carolina 181, which is also a principal arterial road. The parcel has 3 structures on it. One structure is a single-family home, and one is listed as rural retail. That is a tax office definition for little buildings that might have some sort of retail establishment in it or part-time retail. The third structure is not on the property tax card. However, it does appear to be a small storage building. The parcel is served by public water only from the city of Morganton, and wastewater disposal would be handled by a private on-site septic system. Approval of the septic system for other commercial uses, of course, would have to be examined on a case-by-case basis. The property is located within the Lake Roadhis water supply watershed and is within the Oak Hill Fire District. As far as the surrounding area goes, the land uses in the surrounding area are predominantly residential homes and vacant land. There is one business that is located across the private drive to the east. The next closest commercially zoned properties are located about a mile away to the north and about a mile away to the south. For the existing zoning and land uses around this property, to the north is zoned R2 and R3, and it has residences as well as some vacant land. To the south is zoned residential 3, and it also has vacant land and residences. To the east is zoned general business as well as some R2. There is a commercial business and a residence there. And to the west, it's zoned R3 and R1. So there's residences and vacant land as well. Approximately 1.7 miles from the nearest, wait a minute here, I got a page out of order, sorry. All right. As far as the conformity with the Burke County zoning ordinance, it is zoned R3. The proposed general business district designation is intended to classify lands that, because of their location, access, and availability of services, are suitable for commercial development. This includes retail trade services that are easily accessible, compatible, and geared for local, neighborhood, or regional needs. You all do have a copy of the map that shows the current zoning in the area, and the pointed piece parcel is the one in question, and then right over to the west of it is, or east of it, is the commercial zoning. When you drive up 181, you may have seen that. There's a mobile home on that property there. So the Burke County Planning Board, it met on January 24th, 2019 to hear the proposed rezoning request. Staff presented their report and the applicant spoke briefly about the request. The floor was open to public comment and 4 citizens did speak, and they spoke against the proposed rezoning. The comments were related to the small size of the parcel being used commercially, the ingress and egress of the property and parking at this particular location, and the effect of NCDOT road widening project on the front of the property. There were also concerns about the existing septic ability to handle a commercial use of the land because of the small size of the lot, and it's also because of the way the lot is shaped. And once you add in the setbacks, there's not much lot left. A claim of underground storage tanks from a past business was also presented by one of the citizens. So the chairman asked the board to make a motion on the rezoning request, and a motion was made, and it passed on a 3-2 vote. So it was not unanimous. Planning board rationale for the decision to approve was the subject parcel is consistent with general business. Leaving the property R3 is basically rendering the subject parcel useless, in their opinion. The brick building is too close to the main road and would not meet current setback requirements for any future residential neighborhood development. As far as the staff, also Peter Mentor did some investigating after the meeting and has found that the small size of the parcel would indeed limit types of commercial uses that can take place. The ingress and egress could possibly be problematic. Before any development of the property could take place, a site development plan would have to be submitted for review. One of the reviewers of the site plan is NCDOT, and so they could possibly deny a commercial driveway at this particular place, deeming it to be unsafe. A zoning permit would not be issued until all federal, state, and local requirements are met. The senior planner did check with NCDOT, and there are no road widening project proposals in the new future for widening North Carolina 181. Staff also put in a call to the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality concerning the claim of underground storage tanks, but as of now, we have not heard back from them, and more than likely they would not have any record of these tanks because the building probably predates the state's monitoring and schedules for where all these underground. This would be a gas type of tank that would have been there. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have in
All right,
regards to
gentlemen,
this property.
questions for Scott?
Mr. Chairman, I understand the dilemma, and I've got a big question about it myself. If you have 3 buildings already on that property, you have a septic tank and a septic tank line, which you cannot park over, and then you've got, I'm assuming, a gasoline fuel tank underneath somewhere, and we don't know if that's contaminated the soil or not. So, but I guess the question comes is that it would be a huge safety problem, looking at your pictures and your diagrams, to have enough parking that any type of business would sustain for a long period of time. I mean, it's just, I don't know what if you put a little convenience store in there, you're still not gonna, at prime times, not have room for customers or want to be customers to park. So it really gives me some concern on reclassifying that portion of land.
A lot of people had the same concerns. Staff had the same concerns as well. At most, the property is probably good for an office type of environment and not one that's conducive to heavy traffic.
What type of business do you think would survive in that type of setting?
I don't know,
I know
sir.
it's not your responsibility. You're doing your responsibility, but, we need to be fair with each other. And I don't know, I don't understand why you didn't have some nearby residents show up for your public hearing, but.
No, we did have.
Did
Four of them spoke against it.
That's right, I remember that now. Yeah, they all 4 spoke against it.
Yes, sir.
That's correct, I remember that now. Do you expect to get word quickly from DOT?
We're waiting for Diener. DOT has no plans. We already spoke with them on widening the road, but we have not heard back on the storage tanks, and I doubt that we would hear back this quickly. Nothing moves that quickly with Diener when it comes to these underground storage tanks. They're carefully monitored and evaluated, and they don't say anything quickly about them because the testing process is so extensive as well.
Will there be a recommendation from the zoning board to remove that tank before?
It would not be part of ours. The request was not for conditional zoning on this property. It was just for straight general business zoning. So if the request was for conditional zoning, conditions could have been placed on the property, but they were just asking for straight zoning.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, just a quick question too. Under the planning board rationale, it says leaving the property R3 is basically rendering the subject parcel useless. Can you expand upon that?
I think that they believe that it just the configuration, you've seen the pictures of it,
I've been by that property all my life.
All your
I was a little
life.
shocked that it wanted to be rezoned to GB because I don't understand how you'd have the space on there, like Mr. Taylor said. So just, I was wondering about the residential comment.
Well, I'm not really sure why they made that, because to me it looks like it would work as a residential property, even though it wouldn't meet today's setbacks. It's existing.
So it's grandfathered in, so but if they
Grandfathered
tried
in.
to remove any structures and redo structures on that property, there would be, it'd be extremely limited.
That's right. So any additions would be a problem, or any expansion, but we don't think that can happen because it won't pass the Environmental Health Department here's septic requirements.
Thank you.
On the application, there was no indication as what he wanted to put there. Did anybody ask in the planning meeting what he wanted to put there?
No, sir. And as you're aware, they don't have to divulge that information when they're asking for just straight rezoning. If they're doing conditional rezoning, then they would have to let us know those things.
Well, Scott and I both have drove up that road all of our lives. I just can't begin to imagine what could happen there.
It's not a good lot, the shape and everything. There's no room on the lot.
Okay. Any other questions?
Just a general comment too, as you mentioned, we've driven up that road all our lives. A lot of people are doing 55 miles per hour around that, in that area right there where Goodman Lake Road forks in. So,
Right.
you know, there is some traffic concerns there as far as speed goes in that area. If you were to try to add something like an existing, or something in general business.
Mr. Chairman, just one more quick comment. This is just a big guess, okay, Scott? This sounds like a situation, Mr. Chairman and fellow commissioners, that the neighbor next door is going to do a business and he wants this changed to business before he purchases a price. Now, I don't know if that's possible or not, but that kind of sounds like what's happening.
I'm not sure, but in general, if you're buying a piece of property that has a structure on it and it's not usable for what you need it for, it's not a very good deal. It just costs too much money to clear it and redo it.
Scott, so is the property as it stands now, if the applicant wanted to, say, put a business office there, maybe for some kind of contracting business or whatever kind of business it might be, not necessarily retail, could he do that with that the way it's zoned now?
He can only do what's allowed in the R3 zoning district, which is, of course, intended for residential uses. Could do some home occupation maybe, as far as cutting hair or something, or selling real estate, something like that, that doesn't generate much traffic.
As it's zoned now?
Right, because right now it's only zoned R3, which is residential. It allows single wides, double wides, some multifamily. Of course, it's not suitable for any of that because it can't get past the septic.
So as his request is stated, would he be able to clearly use it for a business office of some sorts?
Probably not. It just depends. There's so many issues that take place during site plan review when somebody's requesting to do something as well.
Any other questions or comments? All right, hearing none without objection, this will remain on the agenda. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you,
Mr. Chairman, I
Yeah,
don't
yes,
want
sir.
I don't want to object, but I think it'd be very wise of this board to wait till we get those reports from DOT and whoever else. I don't see us. I don't know if he had only four people came to the hearing and all four voiced opposition against it. I think it deserves a little more investigation.
Well, we got the reports from DOT. You're talking about the one from Diener,
Yeah.
about the gas tanks.
Yeah.
Scott,
Yes, sir.
come back.
I can try to get that, but I can't promise that they will deliver that information.
Mr. Chairman, if I heard your comments right, the indication that there might be a gas tank there was from a neighbor.
That's correct.
And so we don't have any evidence that there is or was a gas tank there, other than somebody thinks maybe there might have been.
That's correct, sir. Yes, sir.
Scott and I was here discussing, we go way back, and I don't ever remember selling gas there. I remember other things happening there when I was a deputy sheriff many years ago. Things happening, but it wasn't gas.
Well, my concern is it fair to the applicant to
Yeah.
keep waiting on something that may never happen? I mean, if Diener, they probably have no record of a tank there.
I would agree with that. I don't think there's going to be any records ever of any gas tanks being there.
If it comes back, of course, we'll share that.
Sure. Would you please make another call? Let's go ahead and leave it on, but make another call and let us know immediately what Diener tells you, see if they even have any records. Could you do that for me?
Yes, sir. Of
All
course.
right, good. Commissioner Taylor, that'd be okay if we can just make telephone calls and see if they have any records in that general area and get it right away to us?
Well, the information, yes, would be helpful. I think the big question is still, if we can't determine what business is going to be there, and we can't determine the traffic flow, and we can't determine the amount of customers and the safety factor about that business that close to 181 or right on that 181, I believe we need to get those figures, that information, before we, change the zoning on that piece of property.
We can check to see if there is a record of it, and that's all we can do. They're not going to do a site analysis or anything like that without the property owner, and it is very expensive if they pay for
Mr. Chairman,
storage
another
tank.
question I was going to ask and I forgot. Scott, if you take away the road right-of-ways,
Yes, sir.
Do you still have that .46 acres of land?
No, sir.
usable? No.
No, sir.
So what do we have?
You don't have much except for what's existing. That would be about the only thing they could do, and they would have to hope that they don't change the use so much that environmental health has to come in and say, based on that use, it's going to use more water or more septic than what you have. So it's just not a good site, to be honest with you, for general business
But the
development.
road on 181 is 60-foot right-of-way. What about the other one that V's off?
That's 60 as well.
Both are 60.
Yes, sir.
So he possibly doesn't have a third of an acre usable land.
Probably not. And then you got to remember, we have setback requirements as well, off of the property lines.
Well, unless it's
30
going to
feet
be,
in
as
front.
you or somebody mentioned, about a office for real estate office or something like that. And I don't see it happening. But anyhow, he paid $695 to get it.
625, I believe.
25. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
All right. I think we've heard enough information that, when we vote, I think that'll take care of maybe some things. We've got a lot of information in front of us. The tanks don't bother me. A lot of the other information I heard resonates with me. So I think without objection, we'll just leave that on there, and we'll let it lie where it lies when it comes to a vote, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to the consent agenda items. Item number 1 is proclamation declaring Youth and Government Day. Gentlemen, every year we come to Youth and Government. The month of April is designated as the National County Government Month throughout the United States, and for the past 20 years, as part of the Burke County's participation in this annual event, students from the area high schools have been invited to spend a day with county staff during county government facilities. Burke Middle College, Halliburton Academy, and the Burke County Homeschool Educator Group are also invited to participate. Extension Director Spring Williams-Byrd has agreed to facilitate this event again this year, and the board is asked to select a date for Youth and Government Day. I have 3 dates in front of me. If you'll look at your calendars quickly, The dates that are available for us are April 11, April 16, and April 18. So if you can look at your calendars and let's see if we can come up with a date. The 16th is our regular board meeting day. So we've got April 11, April 16, and April 18.
April 18, I believe, is, no, take that, strike that back. It's March the 18th. I started to say I had a North Carolina Highway Agriculture meeting that day, but I believe that's March the 18th. Strike my comments.
Okay, I got April 11th at 2 o'clock meeting with the Department of Revenue. Is that correct? On our calendar? But we'll be through by then, right? After we finish the lunch.
Why don't we, Mr. Chairman, why
Yes,
don't we take those dates, review our calendars, and vote on it on 2 weeks from today?
18th's looking good for me, if anybody, is 18th, you say you don't have anything on the 18th?
Yeah, I do not.
18th works better for me.
18 here, 18 Wayne. So Jeff, we all decide the 18th.
Hope you can join us.
Mr. Chairman, I didn't see that on your calendar, but I'm sure the more notice we get now, the more we can get our plans made.
All right, I think April 18th. Let's shoot for that one and see if she can do that one for right now, okay? All right. Moving on to our next item is a resolution appointing the new review officers presented by Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is a request, it's actually a placeholder request to update the review officers for the towns. They've had some changes at the COG, and when the COG changes, that means the review officers need to change for the town, and we're in the process of trying to get them all at one time, so I'll have a resolution completed for you soon.
Questions for Kay on this item? All right, without objection, this will remain on the consent agenda item. Moving on to item number 4, Community Development Resolution to support 2020 Recreational Trails Program grant application for let's see, what else we got here? Presented by Shane Prisby. Go, Shane.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. It is grant season again, and I've been busy. The first one is the Overmountain Victory National Historic Trail Boardwalk. This is shared corridor with the Fauna Forest State Trail. This is on state park land right next to Canal Bridge, and what it is currently there is a bridge that ends into nothing, and then there's an embankment that comes up to NC 126 where we have the artwork along the bridge, along the barrier. Right now, folks either have to scramble up through the ivy to get up there and then jump the guardrail and cross, or the less preferable option is go up the driveway. There's also a road right-of-way that is down in essentially a hole. It is substantially lower than the road and presents a serious safety concern with anyone turning into that driveway not being able to see anyone come up there. So the project is to enlarge the bridge and then tie in some boardwalk, elevated boardwalk to gain the elevation up to the road grade where we can do some just regular earthen trail and tie in around the guardrail and then get folks from point A to point B.
Questions for Shane?
Mr. Chairman, just thank Duke Power. They're willing to give the 25 so we can have 100. We appreciate it. Tell them we appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Other questions or concerns? Okay, hearing none without objection, this item will remain on the consent item agenda. Moving on to item number 5 from Community Development. It's also a resolution of support 2020 Recreational Trails Program for the Foothill State Park Northwest Gap.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This grant is the final piece of the puzzle to get the trail connected from Harris-Wisnett Road all the way through to the state park to the Future Code Bridge. We applied for this project last year and were passed up during the RTP 19 grant cycle. We've gone through and reworked this project, found a new bridge crossing location, changed some trail around, and are looking to apply for it a second time. This project, as you know, we have exhausted the loop trail money funding for Dukes, so this project would be a request from the general fund. We've included it as a capital request for the FY20 budget for Community Development Department.
All right, questions for Shane? All right, hearing none without objection, this will remain on the consent item agenda. Moving on to item number 6 from Community Development, we will talk about the Cranberry Bog Convenience Site and land purchase at Jonas Ridge. Scott Carpenter.
Mr. Chairman. So this item is, we've been working actually looking for a site at Jonas Ridge for going on, gosh, it's probably been 2 years. It's really been difficult to find a good site up there to do a convenience, a new convenience site, and the citizens up there have been asking about it for many, many years. So we have found the site, and I've been working with Foothills Conservancy to purchase 20 acres of land, essentially 19.84 acres plus or minus. So Burke County would be purchasing 3 acres, and then the Conservancy will be purchasing 17 acres. And they already have their cash in hand from a generous donor to purchase that, but it will need to be done in November. The seller is Hazel Shell. I don't know if you know Hazel, but she's been up there on the mountain for many years. And there's an old house that is on the property that was a family house. That's part of the 3 acres that the county will be purchasing. So myself and Andrew Cota with the Conservancy will go up. We'll mark off the 3 acres for the new convenience site for what we think is the most usable land up there for that. Then the Conservancy is going to have it surveyed by Four Corners Surveying, and they're going to split out the 3-acre parcel for us to purchase, and then the remainder would be 17 acres. So on the that would be a $24,000 request to purchase the land for the convenience site from Burke County's perspective, and then they will purchase the remainder in November. We're also asking for $25,000 in order to do a study for the convenience center site, you know, how it would lay out, all the things that would be offered, what it would take to see if there's any way to salvage the parts of the house. Is the septic operational that's there, or is there a septic there? You never know on the mountain. We also need to inspect the well to see if the well is usable. And then the remaining thing that we need to do is the design for the Cranberry Bog Park, which is why the money was actually given, because it's seen as a significant and important environmental feature that's rare in the North Carolina mountains. And that's why the donor was willing to give the money, was to protect that. So it'd be a passive type of park. It'd have boardwalks and things in it. And the money for the convenience site, we would be asking in next year's budget, not this year's, once we have fully investigated everything with the project.
All right, questions for Scott?
Scott, the drawing in our package, you got the yellow bowl. Is that the whole total of acreage?
That is about 17 acres, and then it includes the purple to the front. See where the little pasture is?
I do.
So it's splitting through there. The other thing we're looking at moving forward with some help from our friends in the tax office is perhaps the condemnation of the land directly to the north of this, which hasn't paid taxes in 6 years, I guess. And we've not been able to get hold of anybody who's relative or related to the address. And so the 3 acres would not include the 3 acres you're looking at there. We would reconfigure the 3 acres for purchase with the surveyor. That is the part that's in trees there would be part of the protected property because it's draining into the bog. You can see the bog outline, the original location of it there in the right bottom corner with the blue. So that's what's actually being protected. There are some little ponds there on the road. Those were put in when North Carolina 181 was built by the Army Corps of Engineers. And I've spoken to some of the old timers up there who remember them putting those in to protect the bog from runoff from 181.
So the likely site for the convenience center would be along 181, is that what you're thinking?
Yes, sir, that's where it would be.
Scott, how far are you from, well, I guess it'd be Avery? You're at North?
Avery County. I would say that this location from Avery County line is approximately 3 miles.
Do you anticipate a lot of trash being carried to our county since you're that close to the line?
I don't believe they get in abundance right now at Jonas Ridge Convenience Center, which is located to the north of this right now because of the way the roads are configured up there. So I think it's easier for Avery to go to other Avery convenience sites.
Okay, you gave the cost of the property around $25,000. Do we have a cost to build the convenience center?
No, sir, it'd be part of the study.
Or part of this study?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Scott, I think there's an excellent spot for it. You and I have talked about this. We're up there a good bit. And that's less than, I'm going to say, half a mile from the existing, if I'm correct.
Yes, sir.
Because it's just right up there on the right. You can't quite see it in that picture, but it's very close.
Yes, sir.
And I assume when we do this site, and we don't have this in plans yet, but it is going to be paved.
It's going to be
It's
one.
going to be paved.
It would be paved, that is and all the water would be captured as well and treated before it releases. So this would be a site that offers things we're not currently offering with oil recycling and other things as well that we are offering at our other convenience centers.
And I saw you mention in there being eco-friendly, so that's some of the things that I'm glad you're taking into account to keep that sustainable up there.
But we hope to hire Equinox Environmental, if the money's approved, to do a complete plan on this and study and to work with the manager to come up with a good plan for this whole property. Yes, sir.
Other questions or comments for Scott? All right, hearing none, without objection, this item will remain on the consent item agenda. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, sir.
Moving on to item number 7, appointments to the Local Emergency Planning Committee, and that will be presented by Rebecca McLeod, who is Vice Chair of LEPC. Rebecca?
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Hope y'all are well. Mine is very short and sweet, hopefully. The first item is for our local emergency planning committee. We have an opening, and Mr. Charles Conley with Burke County United Way would like to fill the seat. And that term is for 3 years. And it is a 15-member board, and it is designated what the different seats are. But that is one of the nonprofit agency seats. So we're just asking that Mr. Conley be able to be on the board.
Questions for Rebecca on the appointment of Charles Conley? Hearing none, without objection, this item will remain on the consent item agenda. Moving into the adoption of the revised bylaws for LEPC. Rebecca?
You have a copy of the bylaws in your packet, and they have been updated and reformatted, so they look really nice. The group did meet, and the changes that were made were to Article number 3, Section 1A. We added the word elected for official. Yeah, there you go. We also had elected official on there twice, so we deleted it. They had been a while before we had looked at them. Then under Article 5, Section 7, we had changed the verbiage from when you have to notify for special meetings from 7 days to 14 days. So those were the only changes to update besides making it look nicer.
All right, question, I'm sorry.
We were just asking for those to be approved.
Okay, questions for Rebecca on the proposed changes to the bylaws for LEPC? All right, hearing none, without objection, this item will remain on the consent item agenda. Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank y'all.
Moving to item number 9 for general services is approval of water shortage response plan presented by Miles Champion, our general services director. Miles?
Good afternoon. A water shortage response plan establishes authority for the declaration of water shortage, defines different stages of water shortage severity, and outlines appropriate responses for each stage. Recently adopted rules governing water use during droughts and water emergencies stipulate specific requirements for WSRPs. All public and privately owned water systems subject to the general statutes are required to prepare and submit a WSRP as part of their local water supply plan. This includes community water systems having 1,000 or more connections or serving more than 3,000 people in North Carolina. Updated WSRPs are required every 5 years at a minimum. Updates may also be necessary to address changes such as population growth, new sources, or additional demands for water, or after implementation and evaluation of restriction effectiveness. Staff prepared the plan and it was approved by the Division of Water Resources on January 31st, 2019. The public notice requirement for the plan was met by posting a notice on the county's website, posting notices at the Community Development Office, as well as the Water and Sewer Office in Hildebrand. Further, a notice was enclosed with the customer's water bills. Formal adoption of the following resolution approving the plan is requested, and staff requests approval of this.
All right, questions for Miles? All right, here. Yes, sir.
Mike, are we in compliance with what we're trying to do here? Is it proper training, et cetera, are we on board to activate or to, in case of a water shortage?
Yes, yeah, we have state guidelines that we go by. We're prepared to stay in contact with our local water suppliers as the state requires. So we just coordinate with the other public utilities and listen for the state to issue water shortage notices. So we follow their plan.
So this is intended to be funny. I kind of set you up. What do we do when we have too much water and we can tell those people who are praying for water they can quit for rain?
So we will not have a shortage tomorrow.
No. All right, thank you.
Yes.
Other questions or comments? Hearing none, without objection, this item will remain on the consent item agenda. Thank you, Miles.
Thank you.
Moving on to items number 10 and 11, Danny Eisenhower, our tax administrator. First presentation will be the tax collection report for February 2019. Danny?
Afternoon, gentlemen. Thank you. Just go over our percentages here. If we start at the bottom, we're looking at the motor vehicle tax. We've collected 66.87% of our budget. Property tax, we've collected 98.42%. So whenever you combine those together, if you look at the top row, we're at 95.27% of our budget. Delinquent taxes, 63.65%, and late list penalties at 69.06%.
Questions on the tax report?
Mr. Chairman, I had two quick questions. Danny, on your delinquent and your late penalty, you're in the low 60s%. Is that behind last year? Do you see us achieving that mark by the end of the year?
When I
June?
looked at that before I came down, and the delinquent taxes, I think we're on the road to recovery. I'm going to say getting more of those. I think we'll be probably in the 90% range for this year. We were, I can't remember the number, I want to say about 85% last year. Late list penalties, I think that'll probably pick up and we'll make the 100 there.
So
It's going to be very close.
have we projected too much, or next year we need to tweak that a little bit?
I think some of the things that we have done in the last couple months will probably make our delinquent taxes at that same rate be correct for next year.
Okay. That's all I had, Mr.
Any other questions or comments? All right, hearing none without objection, this will remain on the consent item agenda. Moving into your refund report.
Okay, the refund report shows the amount of $1,771.81. There were no rebills, so the $1,771.81 is our net release. We had refunds in the amount of $388.42, and then we had 0 refunds for the VTS that's over $100.
Questions? All right, hearing none without objection, this will remain on the consent item agenda. Thank you, Danny.
Thank you.
Moving on to our items for decision, our first item from the county manager is the presentation of animal shelter information that will be presented by County Manager Brownstein, along with Madam Clerk and Lance Riddle. Brian, you ready?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm sure you're aware of some issues that have been going on with animal control. The chairman has asked us to look into options, and I was looking at this wording here. E.T. and Al are going to be presenting. So,
you know, there's Ed and there's Al.
A.K. and Lance. And in all seriousness, I think they've done a fantastic job, especially in the amount of time they had to do it in, with all the other responsibilities they had with budget and other things. So again, they've done quite a good job, and I'll let them take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I get to start off our presentation, which everybody should have a copy, and it's on the screen. We want to start off by thanking a lot of people that helped us get this report together for you. Of course, we had guidance from the commissioners and county staff. We received information from a variety of counties across the state. The Animal Advisory Board shared their survey data with us early, and we're very appreciative of that. And we'd like to thank the animal advocates, that are passionate about animal welfare in Burke County for their comments and feedbacks and emails. This is some pictures of your current animal shelter on Courtesy Drive. As you can see, there's a lot of background information in your packet, almost 700 pages that correlates with this summary. But these are some photos of the current condition of the facility that was built in '74. Doesn't look like much has been done to it since the 70s. This is the interior. You can see quite a bit of damage there. We have 39 recommendations for you to consider. The recommendations for the facility part of the presentation, we would like to recommend that the board consider appropriating $15,000 or more for minor renovations or repairs to this facility to make it as efficient and welcoming and comfortable for staff and the animals until a permanent solution is determined. We would recommend that these be done within the next 90 days. We also recommend that the office furniture in the animal shelter be replaced within the next 90 days, as it's in about the same condition as the shelter itself. Next, we recommend that the computers and software at the facility be updated within the next 30 days to handle the demands and needs of using modern social media practices. Moving on, we also recommend that an RFQ be issued to find a firm with extensive animal shelter building expertise and animal welfare experience to conduct a facility needs assessment to learn exactly what the true needs for a shelter is now and would be in the future. Once the RFQ process is complete, a firm would be selected and hopefully funding appropriated anywhere from $5,000 to $25,000 or whatever amount you determine is appropriate at the April board meeting. Further, we recommend that the county explore a variety of funding options for a new animal center, and those can range anywhere from grants, loans, fundraising, pet licensing fees, municipal participation, pay-as-you-go, bonds. So that's really, there's a lot of ways it could be financed. We'd also recommend that staff work with the finance department to research methods and procedures that we would need to implement to allow citizen groups and nonprofits to contribute money to construction of a new animal services center to ensure that the process is smooth as possible with the IRS. I understand there's been some changes lately, and we just want to make sure everybody was able to take full advantage of any taxable deductions. Would you all like for us to entertain questions on each section or at the end? Okay, all right, well, I'm going to turn it over now to my my cohort and partner in crime, Mr. Lance Riddle, to do the next section.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. The next section is the organizational structure. These recommendations seek to provide you with ideas for next steps, kind of based off the facility. Then after you sort that, you move into organizational structure. The first recommendation is that an animal services department should be placed under the direct authority of the county manager. This would ensure flexibility and being able to do a whole lot of stuff you may not be able to do right now. It is also recommended that the Burke County Sheriff's Office continue animal control and enforcement operations, but with the day-to-day operations of a center conducted by county staff. And then we also recommend initially you have 3 full-time employees for this center, 1 director, 1 animal coordinator, and then 1 animal technician or something kind of comparable to that. We also recommend the creation and encouragement of a robust volunteer program. We think that should be implemented as soon as possible because volunteers across the state of North Carolina work in animal shelters and animal centers and provide a whole host of services, both that benefit the public and the animals. And these folks, they can be advocates in our community and really champion the cause of animals in a way they may not be able to now. And then moving forward, the current Burke County Animal Shelter, they use an inmate. And the suggestion and recommendation that we have now is that in the future to not use inmate labor at the shelter because the presence of an inmate is inconsistent with our vision to make the shelter a welcoming, vibrant place for individuals and families to interact with center staff and their prospective pets without anxiety or trepidation. The next section is...
Thank you, Lance. The next section is operations. And we are recommending that the Burke County Animal Service Center be open Tuesday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. Adoptions for the public and rescue agencies would take place from noon until 6 p.m. daily. And in keeping with our motto, all about advancing and good public relation practices and public feedback, we're recommending that the sale of animal carcasses stop. We're also recommending that the animal services staff develop standard operating procedures to ensure consistency of service, equitable treatment of animals and the public, and to have a guide for everyday procedures within the first 30 days or less.
Thank you, Kay. The next section is education and marketing, and basically this is ways that a new animal services department and a center can be engaged with the community and community partners to provide services and kind of tell our story, if you will. So one of the first things that an animal services department can do, and they are encouraged to do so, is to utilize and be engaged with social media platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, what have you. Really what this will do is ensure that animals are visible and have an increased chance of being adopted, reduce euthanasia, and reduce the number of animals that are housed on a daily basis in the shelter. Next, it's recommended that staff should frequently post pictures of animals that are up for adoption on social media. This will engage the community, or you can also engage the community by having an Animal of the Week event that highlights a certain animal at the center with a short write-up and a picture. And this is just another way to further be engaged with the community and to encourage folks to adopt animals. And then additionally, social media should be used to inform the community about any public and shelter events. Social media should also be used to inform the public about early closing and changes in hours. Basically anything that we can do to get the word out and inform people about what we're doing. Burke County Animal Services should frequently post and update their section of the Burke County website with relevant information and connect the public to animal resources in the county. And in conjunction with social media, they should also be posting pictures of adoptable animals to the website, not just social media. And then another way to encourage engagement and get the word out, the website should have a community calendar section to let the public know in advance of any events that are going on in the county. It is further recommended that staff work with groups such as Reason, vets, and foster groups to inform the public about any spay and neuter events and services, further utilizing social and traditional media. Staff should work and collaborate with Burke County Public Schools and Reason to expand educational programs offered at schools, and then send spay and neuter literature home with students they can show their parents or their church group or what have you. And it's also recommended that presentations be made to local civic groups and rescue organizations to inform the public about the importance of spaying and neutering their animals and the resources and services that are available. So this next slide is some ideas and recommendations of low or no cost education and marketing ideas that could be implemented. For example, Canine with a Cop Day, and I can't remember what state this was in.
Nebraska.
Nebraska, great state of Nebraska, where once a month an adoptable dog will spend a portion of the day riding with a police officer and being able to meet members of a community. And essentially that's just a way to highlight an adoptable animal and to kind of get them out in the community, not just at a shelter. Another recommendation, low or no cost, is to feature adoptable pets at Burke County Board of Commissioners meetings. You could have a photo, or you could bring the actual animal to be presented and promote and encourage adoptions in the county And with buy-ins, this recommendation can also be extended to the municipalities in Burke County, so we don't have to do this alone. It can be other folks as well. And then Animal Services can also partner with county departments and other municipalities to advertise services on digital signs to increase awareness of animal services, adoptions, and spay and neuter services. Now, these marketing recommendations do have some cost behind them, but it's also worthy of consideration and recommendation. The Burke County Animal Shelter can further increase their visibility by utilizing billboard space on I-40. That is a way to, essentially, people driving in the highway, a big blow-up picture of some dogs and cats and all sorts of things to get the word out. Animal Services could also reach out to local news media for free or reduced advertising, public service announcements, and continuing that Pet of the Week recommendation. And then additionally, Burke County could partner with Reason, local vets, and foster groups to develop a free spay and neuter day. Because as we all know, spaying and neutering in the county is something that needs to be addressed. And doing something like this, and really all these recommendations are ways to get the word out not only about adoption, but why folks should spay and neuter their pets as well. And then finally, Burke County could look into hiring a marketing firm to rebrand the image of the animal service or animal shelter, the Animal Services Department, and the Animal Services Center. And in addition, you promote spay and neuter education and services to the county at large.
Thank you, Lance. The next section is adoptions. We're recommending that the Animal Services staff research home fostering opportunities. This would allow those who are not affiliated with a rescue group to have the opportunity to foster an animal in their home. This will free up space at the center, help animals find a permanent home, and help socialize animals. I found a number of counties in North Carolina have a good fostering program. Also, we recommend that the Animal Services staff research and evaluate current adoption fees to ensure that the price is not hindering anyone from adopting an animal from the center. Based on some of the information we gathered, we were like the second highest of the responses that we seen. I believe it was $125 is what we're charging.
That's correct. In Onslow County, I think, charges $140, and they were the only one that was higher than us.
We further recommend that that staff research the prospect of approved rescue groups pulling animals that have been deemed aggressive by staff to be evaluated by an animal behavioral specialist. Further, as we've previously stated, we would like to see adoptions for the public and rescue agencies take place from 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. on their days daily, which was Tuesday through Saturday. Animal Services staff should also research and evaluate any changes that may be needed to the Burke County Animal Ordinance, whether it's about adoption process or just general changes to the ordinance to make it more equitable or clearer for citizens and staff. And of course, any change to the ordinance should occur with ample research, public input, and direction from the Board of Commissioners. We also believe that a trap, neuter, return program should be implemented to address the feral community cat issues. And lastly, on adoptions, we're recommending that as part of that animal ordinance review to assess whether or not that section on the cat colony registration be reviewed to gauge whether it's still viable. I think we have one participant that's registered their cat colony. And that is the end of our 39 recommendations.
Gentlemen, you've heard one well of a presentation. A lot of work went into this, and I'll talk about that in a few moments. So let's open it up for questions at this time that you may have.
Did we address present staff at the shelter in any of this?
They provided a lot of data for us. Is that what you mean?
Not exactly. I think the present staff, I don't want to say they're burnout, but I think they've just got sort of numb to what's going on at the shelter. And I think maybe a staff change would be good for, I think the public would welcome that. I think that the staff has done a good job, and I also think as we look at the Sheriff's Department and some of his needs, that staff could be very well put to work in deputies that they need of that rank or whatever in his lineup of officers. But the things I hear in the community is just, I think your staff is burnt out. I mean, they've grown numb to this, I mean, for so many years. I think we probably need to make a staffing change.
We addressed that in there, and that is our recommendation, is to let these deputies go back to the sheriff. And we're recommending that we hire 3 staff, and that those 3 staff come under the jurisdiction of the county manager. They'd be titled an animal director. What was the second one? Animal director and
Animal shelter
animal
coordinator.
technician and a what?
Animal shelter coordinator.
Animal shelter coordinator.
I think that probably needs to be one of the first things that we do in the new, looking at the shelter as a new entity or whatever.
Okay. That is one of the main recommendations, matter of fact. Good observation. Other questions?
Mr. Chairman, I have several. Would like to do a couple of comments first, if I may. When we visited Friends for Family, he shared the budget that he has, and he's a volunteer organization, and that budget was $22,000 a month. And I want to go back also and say that the people who wrote us all those letters, and as Norman Vincent Peale would say, some of them weren't too nice. But evidently, we as a board failed in completing our task on those animal control rules. If I recall correctly, and Mr. Manager, if I'm incorrect, correct me, but when we did those things, and we passed them after months of good hard work, and they look good to me, but one of the things we did promise, and I don't think we followed up on, was to have some joint meetings occasionally and tweak those rules and policies, and we failed to do that. So, you know, for those people who care for those animals and has brought it to our attention, we kind of, in my mind, deserve it a little bit. I also read with some interest that in the contract that the city of Morganton was to pay us $9,700 per year. And did we ever have in a contract or amend that as prices went up and the cost went, is it still $9,700 or is it any?
I would assume it's what it was originally, based on the usage of the facility. So there needs to be changes. We can look at that, but you know, the ordinance was developed in a manner to try and encourage more animals to be adopted, and there were expectations for the current staff to have done some development of SOPs and things that weren't done, and that's been some issues. And I've had meetings with the sheriff and have talked to them about additional staff, and that didn't seem to go anywhere. And I asked multiple times, and sheriff is just ready to be out of the animal control business, although they would remain in the field picking up animals and enforcing the ordinance. But the actual shelter operations itself would be done by the staff that's been recommended, and the focus would be a little different than what it is currently.
Well, the other thing on that contract too that I had a question about was that the city agreed in that contract up to $100,000 for improvements, but it's not to exceed more than $25,000 per year. And I saw the figures that y'all presented to build the animal shelter, and I kind of wanted to scream, and I'm wondering if we're sending the right message. You know, I can't come to Wayne's restaurant and work 6 hours because he doesn't make enough money to pay his bills. And we're implementing and imposing ourselves to taxpayers to do what people who own animals should be doing for themselves. And just to ante up money to correct that is going to be a lifelong, till Jesus comes back, of increasing the budget, increasing the employees, and every time you increase budget from this board, it goes back to our good citizens who gets their taxes increased. And, you know, as I have shared many times, many people who have lived in our fine county for 70, 80 years has paid more than what their house cost when they build it in taxes to the county. So I see where you're going and agree with a lot of it, but I think we need somehow or another, and we might need to start at second grade in school. I don't know where you're going to start, Brian, I really don't. But we need to educate responsibility all the way across the board. And for me to have to curtail my spending to help somebody else take care of an animal that they purchased and they agreed to take care of. So my point to that, Mr. Chairman, is if you bring a cat or a dog in and we got to put it in an animal shelter, we'll keep it for 30 days, but you pay the bill. But we'll keep it 10 days. And if it don't move in 10 days, something else happened. Another question I had, we did away with the dog tax. How much would we have to charge for dog tax if we regenerated the kind of money that we're talking about? Because again, we're forcing every citizen in Burke County, if they've never owned a pet, to pay part of their income to maintain an animal hospital. And folks, that's headed the wrong way. I'm sorry. It's just, in many aspects, it's just not animal control either. So, can we find out on those two questions about, okay. Let's see, page 84, and I don't even know what that is. Let me get to it. Oh yeah, it talks about Lieutenant Steve Massey winning a great award.
No, he won a raffle. He won a raffle.
Yeah. And what?
He won a raffle.
Yeah, a raffle, which got us a free study. And we got a copy of that study, but I don't remember seeing that before. And did we properly congratulate him for getting that award?
I wasn't here then, Mayor.
Okay, huh?
I wasn't here then.
Oh, well, you're supposed to go back and research this and remember all this. You know, the scores are higher for Burke County, and according to the research that you got, running 5 in one category and I believe 8 in the other, of euthanasia of cats and dogs. And again, that's where we don't want to be. That needs to be improved. And I think we can improve that if we start letting people know that if you bring an animal, you're going to pay for it for 10 days or whatever the committee selects. I don't know what's fair. I'm just throwing out some statistics. Population numbers are incorrect. In 1919, they list that at 94,000. We're not even at 91. We're barely above the 90,000 mark. And the other thing I wanted to share with the board, and hope it sinks in, we used to have 48 hours notice on material. When you hand me 700 and some pages on a late Friday or a Monday to be prepared in one day for this meeting, that is unfair and unrealistic. And if it has 50 pages or more with it, Mr. Chairman, and it's not delivered to us by Thursday or Friday, what is that saying? Bad planning on your part does not create an emergency on mine. And I know most of you are like me. I reviewed a lot of this, but I didn't get through it. I didn't do it complete. So we need to also, I know this is aside from the animal question, but it's created by the animal question. This much information, you need more time to be a good steward of Burke County's resources. And right now, I think that's all my questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Taylor. Jeff?
Back to the organizational structure, one of the recommendations was we continue with the sheriff's office with the animal control operations. Could that not be handled in similar fashion as we do with code enforcement, have a code enforcement officer or that type of individual that would be under the county management rather than still have two different organizations involved in this operation?
I think what I was told from years ago is when these non-sworn animal control officers knew that they were going into a less than pleasant environment, they would have to have the deputy go with them. So the decision, I think, was under Sheriff Ralph that they just have deputies doing it since they were going out there with them anyways to answer these complaints or investigate and take animals. So if you go outside of that and they're not deputized, if they see they're going into a hostile environment, they're probably going to have to call for a deputy to go with them.
Do we have any data that would indicate how often that's necessary? I mean, if 95% of the time a non-sworn person could do this, would that not be under better management long term?
Yeah, I don't have figures to know how often they do run into problems, and since it's been this way so long, I don't know if folks have gotten kind of used to it. Like if they know that the county is going to come after them for delinquent taxes, after a little while they don't as many challenge it when they think they can get away with it than more of them do. So I don't know.
I did ask Kay to look at that, and I think the information we got back from most of the counties, they were still relying on law enforcement to do the animal pickups. Now, doesn't mean that it has to be that way, but Kay, correct me if I'm wrong, I think our respondents, most of them, the sheriff still is in charge of animal control, picking up animals, correct?
On page 124 in the packet, there's a table that, from the respondents that we received, that was sent to 100 counties. We got about 20 some back, and as to who does what as far as organizational structure, there's a lot of it where it's under the manager for the shelter, but someone else, still has the animal control, or they have it all. But yes, most of the time it's just the shelter that the manager has, or is a standalone department.
Jeff, you want me to check further and see if we can get some data on who's picking up picking up animals?
I think it would be interesting.
Okay.
We still, I think you're still gonna have I don't say rub's the right word, but if you've got two different groups trying to manage this operation, but they may not always have the same perspective.
Well, and I know if we do hire an outside group to do the due diligence for us that has expertise in this area, they're going to be able to give us those statistics nationwide. We've had a brief discussion with one that, they've done this 300 times throughout the country, so that will be able to give us a great cross-section of what everyone does, just as a quick point.
Mr. Chairman, I did have one very important question, and you can't answer it today. I'd love to have a little research on it before you get an answer. And what impact, both short-term and long-term, will this have on the volunteer organizations who do a good job with animal control at their own expense and their own love and appreciation for animals? They're spending, two of them together are spending as much as the county is on animal control. It doesn't cost the taxpayer nothing. So I would like to know the impact of long-term, short-term. Thank you.
I think the one thing we have to remember, that this is just a preliminary report. The actual first thing that we're asking for under the recommendations is just to clean up the current facility that we got and wash it, clean it, get a professional group in there to get the smell and everything out of it, put some furniture in it, and put some computer equipment that works. The second step would be RFQ to find somebody to give us a needs assessment, which will take us way down the road as to where we want to go from there, which will still give us plenty of time to read what we have in our. It's a very lengthy report, obviously. We need to continue to read that. So the immediacy in front of us, or the immediate factor in front of us right now, is the request for the $15,000 to clean that place up down there and get it presentable, and then start working for the final plans that we need to go to. Other comments or questions for Kay or Lance or Brian? Okay, hearing none. Kay, I want to, from all the commissioners, and I think we all agree on this one, I've never seen us have such a detailed report as you two have given us. It is, I'm amazed, and I know Kay and I were trading emails sometimes at 10 o'clock at night about where we wanted to move and where we wanted to go. I can't thank you two enough for doing what you've done to get us to the point to where we're at right now, so we can start thinking about what we're doing in the future. All I can give you is a pat on the back and say, for both of you, say thank you very much. There's more work that needs to be done, but I hope the citizens of Burke County understand we have recognized what is an important issue to this county, and as I said before, we want to do this one time, and we want to do it the right way. Any other comments for commissioners? Mr. Manager, anything else?
No, sir.
All right. If there's no other questions, and without objection, this will remain on an item for decision. All right, moving on, item number 2 is Human Resources, Burke County Sworn Law Enforcement Pay Plan Adjustment presented by Rhonda Lee, our HR Director. Rhonda?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Let me pull this out here. The Human Resources Office was commissioned by the Burke County Board of Commissioners Chairman to conduct a current market analysis for the starting pay for the Deputy Sheriff and Detention Officer positions. The analysis included data from all counties that border Burke County and several municipalities within Burke County. The results of the analysis show that the current starting rate of the Burke County Deputy Sheriff positions has shifted approximately 12% below the current market average since the pay plan for this occupational group was last reviewed, and that was last reviewed in July of 2017. The current starting rate for the Burke County detention officer positions has shifted approximately 10% below the current market average for this occupational group. And just to give you a little history of what we've done over the past couple of years, in July of 2017, the minimum and maximum salary ranges and current salaries of sworn law enforcement occupations were shifted up 2.5%. This brought Burke County deputy sheriff positions up to 100% of the market average hiring rate at that time. And the entire county pay plan also in July of 2017 was shifted up 1.5%, which meant that law enforcement received a total of a 4% increase at that time. County commissioners also approved sworn law enforcement certification pay in July of 2017. The existing officers and newly hired officers who had obtained intermediate and or advanced law enforcement certifications received 1.5% added to their base salaries for each certification. So there was 1.5% for intermediate and 1.5% for the advanced. The county commissioners also in 2017 improved enhancing the sworn law enforcement officer education pay in 2017. Officers receive $500 annually for associate's degree, $1,000 annually for a bachelor's degree, and $1,500 annually for a master's degree, but these degrees must be related to the field of criminal justice. What's happened since then? Since July of 17, there have been several counties that have implemented pay plan adjustments. These are Avery County, Caldwell County, Catawba County, Cleveland County, Lincoln County, and Rutherford County. And these adjustments that have been made since we made our adjustments have shifted it basically from 31,000, the market average hiring rate from 31,459 to now it is at 35,673, which is up about 4,200%. In addition to that, the Burke County Sheriff's Office has experienced an increase in their employee turnover within the past year, about a year and a half. And they are finding it very difficult to fill vacant positions. In addition, enrollment in local basic law enforcement training programs has decreased over the past several years. So it's more difficult finding those people that are qualified to serve in these roles. Increased employee turnover and a reduction in a steady stream of qualified candidates creates a very, very competitive environment where employers must evaluate and adjust recruitment and retention efforts, including but not only limited to pay adjustments. For Burke County Sheriff's Office to remain competitive in their recruitment and retention efforts, it is recommended that the sworn law enforcement pay plan be increased 12% to the current hiring rate market average. It is also recommended that the salaries of the employees currently occupying the sworn law enforcement positions be increased 12% as well. This excludes the sheriff. The pay plan analysis for the sheriff is currently being reviewed for the upcoming fiscal 19-20 budget year, along with other department head positions. It is recommended that the sworn law pay plan adjustment go into effect the pay period beginning March the 23rd of 2019, with the first pay date being April 12th, 2019. Just for added information, there is currently one vacant detention officer position compared to multiple sworn law enforcement vacancies. And as of today, I checked with Captain Robinson, and that seemed to be 12 positions vacant at this time for sworn law out of a total of 92 positions. So for this reason, it is recommended that pay adjustments for detention officer positions be addressed in the fiscal 19-20 budget process. And the approximate budgetary effect for this would be $150,500 for the remainder of this year, and an approximate $558,920 annually. And I'll be glad to take any questions.
All right, gentlemen, you heard Rhonda's presentation. Questions?
Rhonda, would you repeat, you've had pay increases 4 years in a row? 15, 16, 17, 18?
When you say
So-
pay increases, are you meaning like for the sworn law?
Yeah, for the deputy sheriffs. We've had
Deputy sheriffs.
adjustments, you've had people named at a higher level, individuals named at a higher level, which increased it. I guess the real question, can you provide for me, please, going back to 1916, each officer, what their base pay is, what the fringe benefits is, anything that's tied to their social security number, and what the total compensation would be for each year.
Now, you said going back to 2016? Okay, and are you looking at
And it'd
sworn
be
law?
nice if you had time, if you could add these proposed changes for year 2019. I have been trying to get some information. I did not know this was coming up today. Have not got a response. But I'm just going to spell out for you that what I was told 4 or 5 months ago by another county commissioner, that Mecklenburg County has increased their employees for public safety 4 times. They have increased the budget 4 times. Did you watch the news this week, last week? Their crime rate is the highest it's setting all kind of records. And the fact that every time somebody has a problem, you're going to raise salaries. And again, these come from your neighbors, your citizens of Burke County. I just don't see that what we have done the past 4 or 5 years has not, you tell me, in my opinion, it's not resolved the issue 1 iota. There's a lot of things going wrong in our country, and one of them is with the sheriff and the people who protect us, fire department. But the sheriff departments in a lot of counties, they're hard to get people to serve because when a crime's prevented, the sheriff gets accused of the crime instead of the person who created the crime, or the assault is turned around. And it's just, but again, we can't keep going back $500,000, $1 million every year and upping the budget to make the job easier for somebody to get somebody hired. It's just, it's not smart. This animal control thing was not about money. We're going to spend $15,000. That was about rules and regulations that didn't work, and we didn't correct them, and it took a nightmare to get us to pay attention to it. Well, the money that y'all are projecting to spend comes from taxpayers, including my own taxes. And at what point, as I say in socialism, you're going to spend more money than the other people got to spend? You're happy to spend other people's money. If you had to pay the increases yourself, you would not be looking at these kind of raises and increases every year. And somebody says, well, he did a good job. You hired him to do a good job. You hired him to fill that position. I think that Burke County is fortunate to have some good companies and some good employees and some good wages. But if we continue to take all those wages, and you're doing that, by the way, For many people who are retired on a fixed income, they're taking more than 3 or 4 times what their Social Security increase is every year. You do that 6, 8 years, folks, and you backed up seriously. You're behind 30%. Your cash bond flow is down 30%. But anyhow, I'll bring some more information to the meeting. I hope I get it. I have requested it. And if you'll bring that, we'll be able to look at not what Maynard says, but what the figures show, the true data. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Just my observation. We are in a very competitive environment with law enforcement. And we've seen this occur over the last 24 months or so. Lots of reasons behind it, but nonetheless, it's there. Rhonda's numbers don't lie. We're 12% behind. And Commissioner Taylor's going to love this suggestion. I would suggest that we consider, given where we are with the number of vacancies we have and the speed at which this number has continued to move over the last 6, 12, 18 months, that we consider perhaps 14%, so that we might be competitive for at least 2 or 3 months along the way before we are behind again. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I respond?
Yes, sir.
I just love that to death.
I thought you would.
You gave me an idea that I want to give you a scenario. We're in a card game. You know what card game is? It goes to Brian, and he says, I'll call and I raise you. Goes to Scott. He says, I'll call and I'll raise you. Goes, you call, I'll raise you. This is what every county sheriff department is doing, and you use that crazy, unequitable word market price, as a reason to explain why you spend the money. Anyhow, time it gets to you, you double what he is. Time it gets to me, I'm probably 3 times what he is. And you start it all over again. And finally, the guy pinching the poker pot after 8 hours of playing has all the money, and all of you go home broke. You cannot continue. Well, you won't absorb that message. Folks, we're out of control. And unless somebody steps up and says, I will do what I signed to do, I will do a good stewardship for Burke County, and I will abide by all the rules and the procedures, we ain't going nowhere except spending money.
Well, Commissioner Taylor, I'll be glad to play Texas Hold'em with you because I'm pretty good. I said I'll be glad to play Texas Hold'em with you because I enjoy it and I'm pretty good. But, and I'm fine with, with what Jeff said. By the time we do 12%, I would be amenable to looking at maybe doing a little more because you're looking at, and I know you said market, but that's really what it is. I mean, you look at some of the other cities and towns, we're still not ahead of anybody at that point. We're just catching up. And the problem is, you're talking about it being a cyclical problem. Well, the cyclical problem is we can sit here and defer this to somebody else doing our jobs 2 years from now or 4 years from now or whenever it is. Then they got to do a 20% increase. So at some point, you've got to put a tourniquet on it, be responsible, and face the music. And that's what we're having to do. This is a problem that's been lingering for some time. If you talk to the sheriff and any other law enforcement, and some of you have more experience in that than I do, this has been a problem going on for 30 years in Burke County. And not just in this department. So, I think it's commendable the job you've been doing the last 3 years where we're taking a third of each employee, personnel, and bringing them up to market. But we're having to do that because the can was kicked down the road forever. And at some point, we have to be responsible. And now I think is the time to be responsible.
Scott, I'm sorry, you didn't quite get the message. I used poker. If I was anybody who worked for Burke County and you favored the Sheriff's Department 14% raise, guess what I'm gonna ask for? You can't do it. Just simple as that. We are not Charlotte. We don't have a third of the income that Catawba County comes, and you want to compare your stuff to that. And I'll repeat, I ran a radio station for 25 years. I lost a lot of good people. I did a lot of training for Charlotte, New York. I got people that I trained that's working on TV. When they offered them double the money, guess what I had to do? Thank you for your time. Have a going away party. Send me a Christmas card. We didn't have a budget to compete with that. And unless y'all face those true facts, it's going to be a continuation of what you're talking about, and you're going to have the same excuses, the same reason, make my job easier by paying my people more, and lots more. It just doesn't work. Somewhere there's a break.
But if we note the chart that Rhonda's done such a good job of doing the comparative analysis, we're not comparing ourselves to Wake County. We're not comparing ourselves to Mecklenburg County. We're comparing ourselves to municipalities within the county and the counties around us. So we're not reaching off to Buncombe County or wherever where they've got, an enormous pot of money. We're comparing ourselves, doing the comparative analysis to things that are apples to apples, not apples to oranges.
And at the end of the day, our citizens expect us to provide protection. And we can't do that if we don't have the officers in the patrol cars to provide protection.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much for all the great comments that you made and observations that you made. Do we have any other questions directly for Rhonda right now? All right, hearing none and without objection, this will remain on our decision item agenda. Thank you, Rhonda.
Thank you.
Is there any reports that need to be made to us today from anyone? Any other reports or anything? All right. Gentlemen, let me remind you of some upcoming events. March the 14th, 6:30 p.m. is the Cattlemen's Annual Meeting over at the Ag Center. And as I remember, Maynard, they serve big old steaks, right? They do, okay. And that's March the 14th. March the 29th at 8 o'clock a.m., we will all be meeting at Western Piedmont Community College for our legislative breakfast at the Foothills Higher Education Center. Hopefully Warren and Hugh and David will be there to join us in the college. April the 2nd at 1 o'clock p.m. is our Covered Bridge grand opening. So let's keep that at 3 o'clock. We'll be over at Lake James Fire Department. We'll go do the Covered Bridge grand opening, then go over to Lake James Fire Department for our pre-agenda meeting over there. April the 2nd at 6 o'clock p.m. One of my favorite activities of the year is 4-H Achievement Night. We've all been lucky enough to go to that, and I really enjoy going over there for that at the Ag Center. April the 17th at 11 o'clock a.m. is the Master Gardener graduation.
And
And
April 18th is Youth and Government Day.
And April 18th is Youth and Government Day. If you've not been to the Master Gardener graduation, you ought to go to that one too. These folks put in a lot of hard work to get this Master Gardener certification, so try to attend that if you can, and then again April 18th. Are there any other dates or announcements that we need to make?
Mr. Chairman, Western Piedmont Council of Governments annual dinner is April 25th.
April 25th? Okay. And that's going to be at the Hickory Metro Center. Hickory Metro Center on the 25th for that one. All right, any other announcements? For those listening and watching again, please spay and neuter your pets. And if you see a piece of trash, if you would pick up one piece of trash, we would appreciate it. And please don't throw down any trash. We would appreciate that. All right, if nothing else needs to come before us, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say aye. Nay. We're through. Thank you, gentlemen.